Today we're going to be talking to the Freestar CEO, Donnell. Kurt, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Marina. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's Friday, and it's always nice to kind of wrap up the week being able to talk to such an interesting company.
Oh, it's great to be here. Happy to answer everything you're going to throw at me. Let's do it.
Well, let's just kind of start out with an overview of what Freestar does.
Sure. We provide monetization solutions for publishers, primarily in the programmatic advertising space. And for those that don't know the space now, most ads you see online are sold in a real-time auction. And so on behalf of our 400 or 500 publishing clients, we provide the technology that runs on their page that both powers that auction and optimizes the revenue for them. So we represent sites ranging from Barstool Sports to Al Jazeera to Warner Music to JCPenney, Sears, and then a host of other sites you haven't ever probably heard of before, but that have a ton of traffic, and we sort of take care of all things ad ops for them. So we run the auctions, collect the revenue, and cut them a check at the end of the day so they can focus on the content side of things where they tend to be really experts.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an interesting concept and component to advertising that I've never even thought to think of. Usually it's just, what can you put out there and how can that be as optimized as possible? But you're so right in the aspect of that it's more relevant of where it's being shown and if it's being shown to the right people. So going into
that is really how it happens, is based on your browsing history and various other signals. In a matter of milliseconds, it says, this user is an 18 to 34-year-old female in Scottsdale, Arizona, into gardening and football, and who's willing to pay the most for that person at that time. And that changes over time, where if you are on Amazon and abandon your cart, you're very interesting to Amazon to advertise. And then as soon as you check out, maybe you're more interesting to Ford because you were configuring a Bronco the night before, and kind of on and on. So it's a really interesting little niche in the marketplace.
So how long have you guys been around?
We started in 2015 originally, kind of pivoted to this business model in 2016. I joined the company right at the end of 2018, early 2019. A couple of guys I'd known for a while had started it, were growing it, and I was lucky enough to get kind of tapped to come in and lead the next stage of growth here a couple of years ago. It's been just a ton of fun.
What were you doing before you joined the team?
I was actually helping run a yoga company of all things. I was familiar with Yoga Works. I got the chance to help take them public. It was the first boutique fitness IPO. We were buying yoga studios all over the country and kind of creating this big national brand. So I had a couple of jobs there. I was general counsel, but mainly I was running our corporate development team and literally flying around the country, taking yoga class and trying to convince yoga studio owners to sell to me. So it was a very interesting couple of years of my life, that's for sure.
So you said counsel. Does that mean that you had a background as an attorney previously?
True. I'm a recovering attorney. I don't like to talk about that too much, but yes. The early portion of my career I spent at large law firms. I was large law firms like Ballard Spahr and Jones Day for the beginning of my career. I had the chance to learn a ton in the primarily mergers and acquisitions space and general corporate law, where I got to see so many different businesses and frankly learn good, bad, and ugly, the things that they had done well or mistakes they had made in the midst of doing diligence on those deals. So I feel like I kind of got an MBA while I was at a law firm. So it was good. Not my calling in life, but a very valuable part of my career for sure.
So would you say that kind of was a big contributor in what prepared you to be where you are today with Freestar?
It was. I have to say, being a lawyer was not my favorite. I had this when I was a kid or going through college or whatever. I had this dream that when you're a lawyer, like helping structure the deal and do this, that, and the other thing. And I came to realize you just write down what the business people decided. And so I wanted to be with the business people making the decisions. So I had the chance to go in-house at a digital media company, I guess coming up on 10 years ago, where kind of cut my teeth in digital media. I actually was hired as a lawyer, but within a couple of months was running business development and then corporate development, audience development, just sort of expanded the role to end up in a sort of COO-ish position. And it's been just such a treat ever since. I really love the people side of things and building the culture and focusing on that, which I guess has led me here.
So, I mean, there had to have been a lot of decision-making that went into you saying, yes, Freestar is where I want to go, what I want to join. What really drew you to the company?
So I almost joined 2 years before I did. So I did say no once. There was a weekend, I was really a big believer in what they were doing. They were kind of taking a very customer-centric approach to representing other websites. Historically, it had been one big website owner would kind of team up and help represent some other sites, but they were really kind of looking out for themselves. Versus the Freestar model, which was very focused on let's go help external publishers and be hyper-focused on them. So I like the approach that they were taking. when I almost joined the first time, it was just a very young company. I had 2 young kids, and so timing wasn't right, but thankfully stayed in touch with the co-founders, and the time was right for all of us, and it panned out very nicely once I finally said yes in I guess early 2019.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite the journey, transitioning from law to, corporate counsel, yoga type company to transitioning to Freestar digital media. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, you have to be, willing to look at an opportunity separate and be able to say like, yes, this is something that you see potential in.
It's true. I thank my parents for this. Curiosity, I think, is maybe my best virtue, and the willingness to just sort of roll up my sleeves and dive into anything. I guess it comes from my youth a little bit. When I was a kid, I did about every job. I was a carpenter, an electrician. Worked at a bakery, delivered subs, like just any number of things. You just kind of go figure out whatever that next thing is. And A, they taught me the value of hard work, but B, the willingness to just go try new things. My dad's a dentist, but can build you anything under the sun. Let's try it. My mom has reinvented herself 15 different times and has built greenhouses, run food banks, done commercial lending and everything. And so they just gave me that curiosity to go try things. So I've never thought you had to have sort of a static path, and believe you should go find the best opportunity you can and sort of translate the skills and bring a different mindset to whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, they say one of the best way to find opportunity is just to be open to it.
Somebody told me a long time ago, you shouldn't always be looking for a job, but you should always be listening. And I think that's very true. If you're open to opportunities, they're going to find you. And sometimes the universe just pushes things in front of you when it's time to go do them. And I'm a big believer in when opportunity knocks, make sure you're answering the door.
So, I mean, circling back, the product really seems like a no-brainer. It seems like there's, you're going out, you're getting in front of the right people. You have the resources there to make sure that you're getting those opportunities as a company. I mean, it seems like such an easy sell.
It is and it isn't. I mean, it's easy because it's multi-pronged in the benefit that we bring to folks. We maximize their revenue, even net, it's a revenue share. So we only win when they win. So driving the upside is, we're both aligned in that. So even net of our revenue share, they're making more money. They're saving costs because they don't have to have the headcount internally to do this. And it, frankly, maybe most importantly, saves all the headaches of dealing with managing all this technology. Nobody typically has ad tech engineers in-house. You got to go chase down payments from 40 different people versus just one from us. So the actual value prop makes a ton of sense. Where it does get a little more challenging is we truly run all the revenue operations. And so they got to kind of give us the keys to the car and trust us to actually write them a check at the end of the day. And for better or worse, this industry has been rife for folks that have overpromised and underdelivered over the years. And we've really tried to kind of turn that on its head. And with incredible customer service and setting the right expectations, kind of over deliver every single time. So once we get the chance, we do pretty darn well. Our retention is thankfully very good, but it is a big trust exercise on initial sign up.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned it. There are so many companies that have looked into things like this, and they're like, if it ever seems like it's too good to be true, it might be. But it seems like this is a real, genuine, outlet that companies should consider seriously.
It is, and the digital media space continues to get more and more complex. We often say complexity is our friend, whether it's the shift from desktop to mobile years ago, video becoming a much bigger thing, privacy. We've had some of that with GDPR and CCPA, but then this next change with third-party cookies going away and targeting. It's an ever-evolving space that's just tough to keep up with if you're an individual publisher that just doesn't have the resources to be spending your time being an ad tech expert. And we put together a team of now over 85 true ad tech experts that eat, breathe, sleep this every single day. Are going to keep you on the cutting edge and really act as an extension of your team. So it really does work incredibly well when people are open to it.
So, I mean, I would be curious. I think about myself personally and, how this past year has impacted my shopping habits and the habits of, I'm not driving in my car as much, so I don't see billboards. I stream most of my, series that I watch. I'm not necessarily watching normal commercials. And more, I feel like seeing ads on my laptop, on my phone is the only way that companies can really get my attention. Is that kind of a common trend that you're seeing in the market?
100%. COVID has been sort of a fast forward button, I think in a lot of ways in life, but particularly in the digital media and digital advertising space, but even for business models. You think about Target historically, their goal was to drive as many people as you can into the store to go shop. And now they're trying to drive as many people as they can to do curbside pickup and use their stores almost as distribution centers, if you will. And that's just a small example. Think of all the restaurants that pivoted quickly to curbside pickup, that maybe was a nicer restaurant, and they pivoted to, all you have to do is sear the steak when you get home or something like that. Curbside cocktails, just little things, but the people that were smart enough to get out front of that and figure out the advertising, which is all digital. And so it's moved increasingly the spend that was already moving to digital just faster. And so we've been certainly a beneficiary of that, as have our clients.
Mm-hmm. And as you're kind of, structuring the initiatives and opportunities to move forward with and not to, how has your thinking kind of shifted during this time?
We've just sort of tried to look forward and where are those pockets of opportunity. We're a big believer in let's only move kind of one swim lane over. I see a lot of companies go out and just chase every shiny object under the sun. I'm just a firm believer in be the best at the thing you can be the best at. And once you're getting close to that, then we can go one lane over and one lane over. And so a good example of that is in-app monetization. The technology behind that is much like desktop and mobile web was about 7 years ago, where it's still a waterfall where you send it to one person at a price. If they don't buy it, then it goes to the next, versus a real-time auction where you're truly optimizing revenue. And we saw that as an opportunity for growth. So we did a little tech acquisition last year, building on top of that. And so we've got a really nice app monetization platform right now. And that's something that increasingly is just growing. Another piece is retail media. We represent JCPenney, Sears, Kmart, Fanatics, Tiger Direct, a variety of sites there that have realized you can very thoughtfully weave advertising into an e-commerce experience, and it's opened up a new vertical for us. So those are good examples of things that are very close to our core, but maybe more niche or more vertical specific, and keep kind of getting a bigger concentric circle around the business kind of year after year. So I don't know there was any one specific thing that COVID did, but just be opportunistic of where our eyeballs are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world, being able to identify all the different outlets and where it, makes the most sense for a business on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm kind of curious about, I mean, this seems like it's a really difficult manual thing, I would think. I mean, when I think of like auctioning for, is there literally a team of people that are doing, like, how does it actually happen when you're when you're auctioning for space that's so time sensitive?
Yeah, I mean, it's truly in a matter of milliseconds. Our code lives on the publisher's page, and leveraging, we built sort of a wrapper around something that's called Prebid, which is open source, and that's sort of the core code that everything hooks into. And then we've got a host of things that drive yield on top of that. So the actual physical auction is done through technology that we have built and built around. But we do have a team of dedicated yield managers that work on behalf of our publishers to make sure we're optimizing, whether it's floors or sizes, ad layouts, any number of different things that just kind of incrementally push the revenue higher for folks. We truly are kind of the definition of tech-enabled service. Like at our core, we're a tech company, but customer service is really sort of 1A, 1B for us with our tech. And I'm a big believer that your tech has to be fantastic, but your customer service and your people are what set you apart. And I think some companies miss that. They don't focus on the people side of things and just think you can engineer your way out of every problem, and you just can't. There needs to be somebody at the other end of the phone when there's a bump in the road or whatever it may be. That's really important, and so we've really kind of balanced the two.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to know, I mean, the process to be able to identify individuals who can integrate into your company and offer such a unique service and experience that you have. How do you source your people?
Yeah, so we're unique. We were 60 or 70% remote before COVID started. So we were kind of set up from that standpoint starting 2 or 3 years ago. When I got here, we had offices in New York, LA, and Phoenix with maybe 1 or 2 remote employees. As we were trying to hire for some specific roles, as we scaled, I realized we were doing ourselves a disservice by only looking in those markets. So we've decided that we're going to hire the best talent no matter where they may be. And so our 85 or 90 people are in 22 different states at this point in time. So with that, we have a very thorough interview process, given we're doing it all remotely. We've got various team members involved in aspects of that, and have a policy that if anybody gives a thumb down, it's a no. We want to make sure that it's both, it fits sort of culturally, but also obviously the expertise there, and just is this somebody you feel like you can work with? And so we're maybe a little slower at times in the interview process. We move very quickly, but big believers that you need enough people there so you get kind of a kaleidoscope view of a human that you're talking to, and different people ask questions different ways and all of those things. So it's just a matter of being very deliberate about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a consistent trend that we've seen of people hiring now saying, I want to get the best person for the role versus, the location.
Yeah. It's just foolish. I mean, you don't need to be in the same space now. I will say working remotely certainly has its downsides. I actually just spent a decent portion of this week finally getting out to see employees, and it was the best 3 days I've spent. I got a day in Denver with that team in San Francisco and the next day in LA. And just getting to break bread with people and really share those personal moments is irreplaceable, but you can do a very nice job of being remote, supplement it with the get-togethers on a regular basis, whether it's monthly or every other month, and kind of fill up that tank with people of the energy and the excitement and the, God, this place is great to work. But then the rest of the time, let people live where they want to live. And I think when you've got people that are doing that, they're going to wake up a little happier and be ready to run through the wall when they're looking at the mountain that they love looking at or whatever it may be, because they're living where they want to live.
Yeah. And I think, culture is really key with that too, of being able to allow people to, balance their life, but do what they do and do it well, and really being empowered to do what they were hired to do.
Firm believer in that. I don't think there really is such a thing as work-life balance anymore. I think it's work-life integration and figuring out the ways, particularly in a business like ours that does have such a customer service element to it. You got to be always kind of on, and it doesn't mean you have to work from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., but you got to be available when you need to. But that also means you can go take a walk at 1 in the afternoon if you want. You got a break, obviously go grab dinner, whatever it may be, but just sort of work it into your life. Like, I have to leave early to take kids to baseball and soccer different days, and so I log back on later. So I think it's a matter of just kind of figuring out that ebb and flow that really works for you and trusting people to get their stuff done. Ultimately is what it comes down to. I don't care if you're doing it outside of, I guess, specific client calls or something where you got to be there. If you're at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., I don't care, as long as the work's getting done and we're hiring adults that we can trust to make sure that happens. And if we ever start to lose that trust, we'll have a conversation. Otherwise, get your stuff done and live your life.
So what kind of, because that's definitely a new age way of thinking. What kind of led you to that belief and that philosophy?
I always just hated the idea of kind of FaceTime at an office. Of you had to just be there. I guess it was during the last economic downturn. I was working at a law firm, and for better or worse, things had dried up for a month or so. But I would still go to the office and just sit there, like read the internet. I shouldn't probably admit this. Sorry, old bosses. But like read the internet. And I would like walk over the hallways, got anything. But I just felt like I had to just be at the office. It was the dumbest thing. It was not a good use of my time. It was just frustrating. And so I always just thought if I had the chance to work someplace, like figure out a way to just let people have the freedom, but with the responsibility on both sides to get their work done, but do it in a way that works for them. And of course, within the framework of a company, there's a guy on my team who I credit with giving me this phrase, but freedom within a framework is something that I really believe in. Obviously, there's sort of the rules of how we do things. But inside of that, you get the freedom to kind of do it your own way, be an artist in certain ways when you need to, but the flexibility to take care of your family, kids, whatever that may be. So big believer in freedom within a framework.
That is a really good phrase. I'm actually surprised that that's not just a common, that should be a coined phrase.
Yeah. Credit Matt Burgess. I'll give him a shout out.
I'm gonna go say that to my team in like 5 minutes, and they're gonna be like, "It's 4:30. Why are you calling me to say this?"
It's a good one. I will encourage you to use that a lot because it resonates with people.
So we've talked a lot about the wins and successes, but as a startup, and even at the point where you guys are now, there has to be obstacles and barriers that you've faced and ways that you've managed to overcome them. And I'd love an example of that.
For sure, I will say anybody that's running startup to kind of growth company has this back and forth of everything's great, everything's broken, and it's literally every 30 seconds it feels like you go back and forth because every day you're facing sort of that next stage of problems. We're in that 50 to 100 employee mark. We're just across 100 million in revenue, which is one of those other milestones that leading up to that comes with a lot of challenges. And so I think you're always going to have that stuff going on. So I think it's giving yourself a little patience and knowing that not everything is going to be great. I had kind of a thought earlier this week about being kind of healthily unsatisfied is a really good trait in an employee where we're setting revenue records, but we know we could be doing a little bit better. And when you're interviewing, trying to find that, to your point of what were some tough things that we've overcome, the advertising market, literally the bottom fell out of it last Q2. rates went down 50% overnight. And, that's no crap moment if you've ever had one, but, we've built a solid business. We had the trust of people, and we were able to kind of calm people down, bring them together, and sort of assure people that we're going to get through this together, and we'll make that, but not ever overreacting to the point where people were worried about jobs or anything like that. And being really positive, and I think being as transparent as you possibly can about a situation is huge. I think a lot of leaders will sort of put lipstick on the pig and pretend like things are great when they're not. I think if you tell people, honestly, guys, this is tough right now. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. People are going to respect you, but frankly, trust you more. And, be willing to run through that wall for you. And that's what you need. Like, I encourage leaders to share a little more than you should sometimes. And maybe it's uncomfortable, not what you've been trained, but, time and time again, when I've been very open and honest with people, they get it, and they're going to be more apt the next time to do the right thing or do the extra thing for you. So I don't know if that was a specific answer to your question, but hopefully a couple of tidbits that are useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes me kind of think as, you're having these conversations with employees and your clients. I mean, how are you guys selecting who you choose to take on as a client?
We have carved out our niche sort of mid-sized to enterprise publishers. So folks that are typically doing north of $10,000 a month in revenue, or who we work with up to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So we've got kind of our niche in the marketplace. We're very content agnostic in who we work with. I shared sort of our client list, and it's very wide ranging. That said, we of course want to make sure they're within the bounds of being very quality content, obviously within all the legal bounds. And so we work with basically the bidders in the auction, if you will, to see, is this inventory you'd be interested in, and do sort of a check from that standpoint. We're actually doing some additional things now with, there's actually a nonprofit that publishes an index of sort of disinformation on websites. So it's going even further than what is the content. Are they spinning narratives that are not very positive, despite the fact that they were using actual facts? And so we're trying to improve our processes there of making sure that we're kind of within the bounds of safety. At the same time, we don't want to be playing language police. I think it's a slippery slope on freedom of speech and a variety of things. So something we think about a lot, but definitely tough. But quality content sites is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. And, having it be where your guys' responsibility is within, the location advertising relevance, and, saying, we will get this in the right spot, but you guys have to take it that last, mile of what it's supposed to say.
Yeah, for sure. We really work on the publishing side more. On the advertising side, it tends to be more of that real-time auction, but we do work with advertisers directly as well. So it's just kind of making sure that it feels like it's right. I think we all know kind of what passes the smell test usually.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I'd love to just kind of know a little bit about, future plans, and you've got a lot going on right now, and kind of what's the next iteration of this?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, our app business, our video business, and our direct sales business are all kind of fires that we're fanning right now and are growing pretty significantly. So we're excited about those. We've got some potential acquisitions on the horizon, which could add some additional kind of firepower, some additional capabilities, and then just kind of doing more of what we're doing. So it's not any one specific thing. Something that I'm lucky our founder, David, and I really share is not setting our eyes on the prize too much. We have to do an IPO by this time, or we have to sell the company. Mm-hmm. We really both believe that if you go build a really good, profitable company, your sort of options will be endless down the road, and you can have your choice of things. So we want to just kind of keep getting 1% better each day. We talk about that with the company all the time, and just sort of pushing forward and adding, like I said, one swim lane over. You don't have to boil the ocean and do everything.
Yeah. And, you coming in at a really interesting time where you're still able to really be a part of growing the startup, but not actually having been the one who started it. I'd like to know how those conversations go, maybe when there's visions that align and visions that don't necessarily align.
Sure. I did definitely come in at an interesting point. Like I said, there's two co-founders of our business. When I came in, one was stepped out of the day-to-day and one stayed in. And so it was sort of a changing of the guard moment, I suppose. And I think they can go one of two ways. If I had come in and been tyrannical, we're doing this, it would have gone poorly. My belief is that the employees knew a lot more than I did. And they knew where the issues were. And so I went and literally interviewed every single employee in the company about what's going well, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. and didn't make any views of how we should change things until I had that real full picture from the employees who are doing this every single day. It was astonishing how much information I got out of those, but it helped sort of shape the vision. And it was clear that we had done so much on the tech side and were doing well there, but we had not taken customer service serious enough. So pretty quickly doubled down on the human side of the business, and it sort of made it much more of a balanced approach. But I wouldn't have known that had I not taken time just to talk to the employees. It sounds stupid. Take the time to talk to employees. I do office hours with our different teams. I try to do at least one a week and just have this open forum to just talk. And it's amazing the things that you'll get in those settings once people start talking and vibing a little bit that they don't necessarily tell their manager or put on the survey or whatever it is. So big believer in just getting people talking and then figuring out how you can solve their friction points after that.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because many of these conversations that I've had are people that are in that situation. And I always think, man, like that's got to be a really tricky spot to start a company or to join a company that's already been started and taking that vision, further.
I got super lucky that our company had really strong values when I showed up. We've got 3 values: publisher first. Basically anything we're doing, we put the publisher first because we're really aligned. We only win when they win. We, not me, really the idea that we're all in this together. No job too big, no job too small. It's not my trash on the floor, your trash on the floor. It's our trash on the floor. And the last is above and beyond. And that is everything that we do, we're going to do with excellence and expediency and just be fantastic at our job. And so the core values were instituted when I got here. So it was really a matter of kind of celebrating those, bringing those to life a little bit more. And so the foundation was set. It was the little things of like, why don't we have customer service? Like, let's double down there. Let's really play up these values and things and kind of keep nudging the momentum forward. But, I came into a very good spot with a great foundation. So it was just, don't screw that up and then build on top of it.
Yeah. And I always, like to close these talks with a little bit more about advice that you'd give to, someone who's starting a company. But I'd love to flip this a little bit with you on advice on someone who's assessing an opportunity and if they should go for it.
Interesting. I think first and foremost, is it going to challenge you? Is it going to be intriguing? Is it going to get you out of bed, keep you up thinking late at night about it? And if the answer to that is no, I'm not going to say no matter how much money they're going to pay you, but almost no matter how much money they're going to pay you. If you're not doing something that's interesting and intriguing that will ultimately be fulfilling, you're going to be miserable after some point in time, and it's not worth doing. So I think job number 1 is this intriguing to me and a problem that I want to solve? Mm-hmm. Job 2 is, are the people there people that I want to spend a lot of my time with? We spend more time at work than anything else in our life. And you don't have to be best friends with everybody at work, but I think it's pretty nice when you feel like you'd be happy to grab a beer with anybody you're working with. And that's a pretty good sign. And then the third, I think, goes back to kind of the values and the vision. Is this a company that's sort of honest and trustworthy and values those things as part of the fabric of the company? Because you get on the wrong side of that and you get mixed up in some situations you don't want to be, or your personal brand stained, or just in uncomfortable spots you don't want to be. So I think it's kind of a mix of those. But first and foremost, is this going to fire me up every single day to go do?
Yeah. And I think, I really resonated with point 2 about, people that you work with, that you spend time with. Because, for me personally, I have a team of 4 people. And if we didn't get along well, it would be a very hard place to work. But we're all best friends. And it makes it just such an exciting place to work because you're happy to be around the people that you work with.
That is awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah. So how can our listeners learn more about your company?
Yeah, come check us out at freestar.com, freestar.com, or check us on LinkedIn. We post a lot of content on there, or feel free to shoot me an email, kurt.donnell@freestar.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I am very excited to see what Freestar does next.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Miranda. I really appreciate it.